going to talk a little bit about this landscape zodiac of Britain, and we'll do some exercises related to it, or experiments related to it, and go out and explore the central part of it. First, I want you to remember back to last night, where we were sitting in a circle, holding hands, and some of you felt the energy flowing one way, going clockwise. Who felt it going clockwise? And some of you felt it going anti-clockwise. Who felt it going anti-clockwise? See? And I said, that's life. And that is life. Life is known to have not just truth, but the double truth. The double truth. So in Egypt, the Hall of Truth was actually the Hall of Amati, the double truth. Double truth. It's quite useful to get to know this. And there are lots of different ways of understanding this. The most simple way, which I like in terms of understanding what we call God as the divine love, which is what was taught by the Orphic mysteries. In the Morphic mystery teachings, which Jesus took up, and he reinterpreted the Hebrew teachings in that way when he was asked. God is love. He said, love God, that's the all, and love each other. Two truths. Love God, love each other. What does that mean to you?
We're everything and we're unique and individual.
Yep, that's one understanding of it. It's great, isn't it? Each of us is the all, and yet we're also individual. We also attune, if you like, inwardly, the truth we find within, and yet there it is all around us. We can also say, I have love, I am love, but there are you, so I can love you. You know, we can't express love unless there's the other to love. It's got to be the two truths. If I am love, I see you, I love you, you love me back. We have this love relationship, but it takes two to make that. Two truths. I'm love, you're love, two truths. And we love each other, the third, the magic third, relationship between the two. And all life is like this. I find it quite wondrous. And one of the things I've come to understand with working to find the truth or wisdom in nature and in the landscape is that you have the double truth there. You have the ideal, which is one truth, and we can imagine the ideal, or we can draw it out as perfect geometry, for instance. But there's also the real. You know, I'm ideally perfect, but also I'm not perfect. I'm very imperfect. But I'm trying to be perfect. You know, whenever we conjure up an idea of what we want to do, we have if you like, an ideal about it, and we try our best to get to that ideal, but we don't do it. But we get as near as we can to it. It's like walking a straight line. It's actually impossible for any of us to walk in a straight line. Have you ever noticed? Yeah. And all the old tests in the police stations were furious, you know. Nobody walked in a straight line. It's not possible. You can try to, but we don't. We will veer off at some point. So it's absolutely natural to do that. And so, from the point of view of our walking like that, we're more associated with what's called the snake, the serpent movements, or the dragon energy. But the dragon energy is trying to follow the ideal path from A to B to do it. Well, the same thing when we come to understand things like the zodiac, wheel of life, divided into its various geometries. There's the perfect geometry, and then there is the nearest match to it, which we find in nature, which is the real, the ideal and the real. And this is happening all the time. So I want to say this first straight away, because unless you grasp that, it's difficult to understand anything else really. I did a lot of study of the Renaissance works of art and so on, both in painting, sculptures, architecture, and things like that. And they portrayed it with a framework. They called it the framework of nature. And in that framework, they had all these wonderful plants climbing and, you know, moving around and flowering and so on. So it's like trying to climb roses up a framework. You know, you've got the frame, and the roses are doing their best to climb that frame, following it, but not being exactly the same as the frame. But what they do is beautify the frame. The frame, if you like, is the perfect geometry. But the natural growth, the real growth, tries to follow that geometry, doesn't quite get it right, but it beautifies it. Another key to life. We are all beautiful in what we do in a loving way. We're like roses that can beautify the framework of laws of the universe. Very great privilege, I think, to do that, and a wondrous design. So I'm talking about the British Zodiac. I need to set the scene in what I call the three lands, because they very, very clearly have three distinct zodiacs of Scotland, of Ireland, and of Britain. That's Roman Britain, Britannia, which is now England and Wales. And they each have a sacred centre that was recognised for thousands of years, been recognised, sacred centre in each land. The one in Ireland is the Hill of Uisneach, in the centre where the Gaels used to keep a sacred flame burning all the time. And the High Kings would have to go and relight their flame every year, or every 3 years, some people say, at that central flame. And then once the High King lit his flame, taken it to Tara, which is somewhere there, then all the other provincial kings and others can light their fires, and then the whole of Ireland lights up. But it all starts in the central flame on Uisneach Hill. Scotland has its centre, which has been very, very concealed. The Germanic centre has been very concealed for many years, but there is a folk story which Shakespeare takes up and puts it into Macbeth, and that's the Hill of Dunsinane, the ancient royal centre, which is the Germanic centre of that landscape. The geographic centre, though, of Scotland is a bit different, because so much of the land over to the east has sunk. You know, so it's, if you like, it's a bit of distorted land now. So now the present geographic centre is a bit further over to westwards and marked by Schiehallion, the great mountain of Schiehallion, which is wonderful to climb, but takes much longer than my son said. You know, you think you're coming to the top, and oh God, no, it's not the top. But it's a very unique mountain, and from a certain direction, it looks like a pyramid, beautiful pyramid rising up. A solitary mountain. That's the geographic centre. So for most Scots, that is the centre of Scotland. But it's not exactly the Germanic centre, which is Dunsinane. And then the centre of Britain, British Circle or Zodiac, is High Cross, which is where the ancient Watling Street and Fossway cross. Those two roads were first established by the Britons, Celtic race called the Brythonic race, which we get our word Britain. And then the Romans paved them when they came over to this land. And they cross at High Cross, hence you got the name Cross. And it's high because it's on a lovely hill. But it's a big hill, but it's very gentle and expansive. So it's not a dramatic mountain as the centre, it's a gentle hard hill. It's lovely. At one time, before the houses were built up there, you would have been able to have a 360-degree view all the way around for miles and miles into the distance. Fantastic place. The extraordinary thing about it, I found, is that link the three centres together, and you have an equilateral triangle. I mean, how often does that occur? So it's a wonderful geometry of the Holy Trinity, if you like, appearing or underlying this land of the British Isles, which to my mind, gives an idea why these were known as the Holy Islands in the past to many cultures throughout the Mediterranean area. They referred to British Isles as the sacred lands, the Holy Isles, the Blessed Isles. And then there's much more to say that one can find in mythology which explains all. So I've researched the zodiacs of each of these. The Scottish one's been the most difficult to find because one has to use all our faculties really to find it. Inner faculties, clairvoyant faculties, the physical faculties, see it in vision, actually go there, walk the land, and then you have to research it historically, mythologically, and so on like that. Because everything needs testing. You know, we have to test everything out. But I've eventually found enough indications in Scottish zodiac to show the ancient Gaels knew about it, and they went specifically to the key centres to establish their sovereignty of Scotland, basically. And the Gaels, when they invaded Ireland and got rid of the Tuatha De Danann, who were inhabiting Ireland before, who they say retreated to the hills, you know, the barrows. So they became the fairy beings. But the Gaels came with the knowledge of Ireland, and it was already set up to a certain extent geomatically, but the Gaels enhanced it, perfected it, and completed the marking of the zodiac. And Ireland's never been really invaded since and ruined, so it's very easy to find their zodiac there, their wheel of life, with its 4 provinces, its central province, and so on like that. Britain was more difficult to find, but easier than Scotland, because we've had so many cultures coming into Britain and messing things around a bit. But, well, I think I've been lucky. I was initiated into what you could call a Rosicrucian mystery stream. And so yeah, I've been helped to find the key places and prove its use, how it works, and so on like that. And it's a fantastic story, and some of its great mythology tells you how to work the land. Now the key axis for Britain really is this one that connects with Ushna. This axis from Croagh Patrick through Ushna, through Dublin, through Snowdon, through High Cross, and down that way through the Cambridge area, got Magog Hills, and out the coast. So that really establishes one of the main axes for the geometry of the British circle. So I want you to bear that in mind. Now what I'm going to show you is what I've discovered of this British zodiac that was laid out in the past and being used by various generations of people throughout the millennia. And some of the mythology that's linked with it. But there is the ideal geometry, and then there is the real, the closest you can get to it. And what the mystery schools did, in a circle, they used to recognise 2 or 3 basic geometries. Ones that come out very strongly in the British zodiac is the 6-fold geometry and the 5-fold geometry. So 6 double gives you the 12, like the 12 signs of the zodiac, and 5 double gives you the 10. Now every wheel of life or zodiac has this geometry, but it's a question whether humanity wants to work with one or work with the other, or work with both as to how much they mark it. In the British zodiac, both the 12 and the 10 have been marked and used. And the 12 is I'll show you the next picture. This is the 12-fold geometry and the ideal geometry. So it's the equal sign geometry. It's called the equal sign zodiac. The centre of it by cross. So sorry, the quality. You can't read it properly. Can you see it at all?
Yes.
This is the main axis from Ireland, coming down here through Snowdon to High Cross, and then on to Magog Hills there, and so on. And the Watling Street was laid out along that route, actually bringing gold over from Ireland. Down it came the gold route. Gold was used as a sacred thing. It wasn't used by the Celts for buying things. It was considered so sacred. It was a ritual object. They used to bring it down here from Ireland and put it in the temples and so on.
And you said that that's Watling?
That's Watling Street.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from an old word, whittling or something, which means it is the Irish way. Then at High Cross, the street suddenly takes a turn down in this direction, and what it's following is this line as part of the geometry, and goes to London. It used to cross the Thames at Westminster, and then go on down towards towards the coast down here. But the Thames, it's forded at the Thames, although they've now found there's an old bridge there. The archaeologists found an old bridge dating back a long way in time. And then there's a feed off from that Watling Street into London on the east-west axis to give the main axis of London, ancient London itself. And that's also called Watling Street. If you're ever in London, you'll find a little bit of it still remaining. And then the head of Bran, which Sarah told you the story yesterday, head of Bran representing what we nowadays call the Grail Cup, was brought all the way down that route and buried in this mound, old Celtic burial mound, on the edge of the River Thames. And it's sacred. It's actually our symbol of sovereignty of the land. To be king or queen of this land, you have to be guardian of the Grail, guardian of the Holy Grail. That's why when William the Conqueror came over, he headed straight for the London. He built a backing great tower on top of the mound, complete control. There's a beautiful chapel in it, which is the Royal Chapel, and it's traditional. Before a coronation, the king or queen used to have to spend the whole night in that chapel before the coronation. In other words, you have to attune to what it means to be sovereignty and psychologically die in order to be reborn in your higher self, your higher consciousness, in order to be able to rule wisely. I think now the whole night has been cut down to just a few hours in that chapel, but it still happens. And then from the Tower of London, the sovereign goes to Westminster to be crowned. So it's a very, very important ritual, dating right back, 3,000 or more years, in its importance. Just to give you a little hint, what's going on in terms of the land, in ourselves, this is our head, head of knowledge, and it's symbolised by Aries, sign of Aries, with that sign like that. Well, in order to do things right, we have to humble the pride of our thoughts, or pride of our ego. Oh, I'm great, I've got a fantastic idea. Well, if you want to be king, or ruler of something, I'm going to be ruler, ha ha! you've actually got to remember, no, humble it. You know, the perfect king is the perfect servant of the people. To be king, you have to be the servant. And so it's called sacrifice of the Lamb of God. The Lamb of God is this ram. Sacrifice the Lamb of God. It falls to the feet in humility. And that has the power to raise the central energy called the Kundalini, the central dragon energy. It can only be raised through this humility, this sacrifice in love, in service, act of love. And that will raise the central Kundalini. That's the only energy that will go into the heart chakra and straight from the heart up through the other chakras, into the crown, open the crown chakra, and you're in that state of illumination. So until that offering, that sacrifice is done, you never reach illumination. Simple as that. Well, here it is. Bran, story of Bran, right from Snowdon, you know, the great head of the whole thing, the highest mountain in Britain, brought all the way down to the bottom, to the root, buried in the mound, you know, death experience, burial mound, waiting for the energy to shoot up, Kundalini energy to shoot up. Which, if we did this in pilgrimage, for instance, we would enable this to happen over and over again. Bring the sacrificial energy of love down here to there, offer it to London, and then the energy buried there will shoot up that line. I mean, to me, that's the idea behind all this. Of course, one can do it in any landscape, small or large. It's the same principle, but this is how the Celts laid it out for the British Isles. And it makes London, city of London, very important. And in the whole zodiac, once I found how it works, it is extremely important, because in terms of, when you see the zodiac in the sky, it's our idea. We project it onto the sky. You know, we see it there, and we've got the ecliptic circle of the sun, path of the sun and the planets, making it circle, so we find its centre, which is the occult pole. But all the different groupings of stars, which we call constellations, that's man-made. We've made those groupings. Some we made big, some we made small. Well, 12 of them give their names to the signs of the zodiac. They're all different sizes. You know, what the heck? You know, why do we do that? Why do we make them all the same size? But they're not. And this is very, very important, because it gives rise to what's called the equal sign zodiac, which is the ideal, and the unequal sign zodiac, which is natural. Even though we've made it like that, that's natural. I mean, why have they done that? But anyway, in that zodiac of the sky, there are two fixed points on the ecliptic that we say are fixed always. And that's where the meridian of the Milky Way crosses the ecliptic on one side and then the other side. Because all the other stars are slowly moving, so you can't use them as fixed points. But you can use the meridian of the Milky Way. And that's, if you join those 2 points together, which are opposite each other, on that circle, then you have what's called the main axis of the zodiac. And in this zodiac on the ground here of Britain, that main axis comes from London through High Cross and up in this direction towards Manchester and Liverpool. And actually I found the ecliptic goes through London, through Llangollen and so on. So it gave, that took years to find and prove it, but I know it's there now, and everything else fits into place. And so the key point, that London marks a key point, which is where the imaginary equator of the Milky Way galaxy crosses the ecliptic at that point in London. And the main axis of the zodiac then is from London up to High Cross, and then, as I said, up towards Liverpool, and so on. It crosses the ecliptic at this point. And the extraordinary thing is, years ago when I was in India, and I knew a very wonderful Brahmin, priest, seer, called Shastraji, and he said, I have to tell you these things. Babaji has told me to tell you these things. You have to remember them. And so he kept telling me these things 3 times. And one of them was that during a dark age, what's called the Shiva Lingam, which is that stone they erect, which represents the pillar of the universe, because Shiva means the pillar of the universe. They erect the stone. Well, they choose a black stone during a Kali Yuga, a dark age. It has to be a black stone. But Shastraji said, when a golden age comes, you erect a white stone. So the sign of the beginning of the golden age is when a white stone is erected. Guess what's been built there exactly at that point? A great big sculpture, modern sculpture, only put up a few years ago, called The Dream. And it stands like a white pillar with the face of a young girl, eyes closed, dreaming a beautiful future. Mm-hmm. And it's raised up on top of what used to be a great big coal heap, waste coal, collieries. So but the miners had it erected, and it's representing the darkness and the difficulties of working in that thing, sort of turned into light, and a difficult life turned into a beautiful life. So it's fantastic. just a few years ago. So it's there to be seen. It's right in that spot. Well, nobody there who did it knew about this zodiac.
Maybe they did.
No, they didn't know. But the thing is, people get guided intuitively.
That's what I mean.
And we don't know why we do certain things, but we will do it. There was a competition, and it was the miners here that won it. It could have been other people who won the competition, but the miners won it. And so they got the money to have the sculpture done. So it shows the guidance we have, the angelic guidance that's given. Certain things are planned for us, rather like a script, for a play. It's written for us, and we just have to act our part. And now and again we're told the next little bit we have to do. Not always the whole story.
That's in Liverpool or near Liverpool?
It's near St Helens.
Liverpool's Manchester is there.
And what is the name of that point again?
St Helens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the district. St Helens, which again is a lovely name. And if you travel up the motorway here, you see it in the distance, standing up to this white pillar.
But what is that point on the zodiac? Where that sculpture is? I mean, what did you call it?
It's where the meridian of the Milky Way crosses the ecliptic.
Okay.
Now, when the zodiacal wheel is divided into the 12-fold geometry, and then it's associated with an animal, a creature, to give it its name. So we call them the signs. The first sign is Taurus, or it's called Taurus, because Taurus rules the throat. And the throat is what sounds the word, and it's the word that is the creator, represents the creator. The word of God creates everything. So Taurus is the alpha sign of the zodiac. We get our letter A actually from the symbol of the bull. The head with the horns actually gives rise to our letter A, or alpha, because of that. And everything else unfolds from that alpha. So then you go from Taurus, Aries, so on in that direction, or so on. So the cusp of Taurus and Gemini is that point on the ecliptic where the Milky Way crosses the ecliptic, major point. And the opposite point where London is the cusp of Sagittarius and Scorpio. And these, to understand that, it tells you some very great things. Now the ancient mystery schools and modern ones, the inner schools, they don't use the rising sun at the equinoxes as the main marker of time, because it's a variable thing according to where for various reasons. But the only points you really get it fixed properly are the midsummer sun rising sun at midsummer and midwinter. So those are always taken as key marks of time. So it's said in tradition that when the midsummer sun is on the cusp of Gemini and Taurus and moving into Taurus with the precession of the equinoxes movement, so it's moving from Gemini to Taurus, and it's on that cusp, then a new age will begin. It's what the ancient Egyptians called the first time. That's happening right now. We're in the first time. We're at the beginning of a new great age of 26,000 years. And the midsummer sun is rising on the opposite cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius, and that corresponds as close as the sun will ever get, as we look at it from here, to the centre of the Milky Way galaxy. So here we have the centre of the Milky Way galaxy, heart of the mother, if you like, great mother. And opposite there, you've got the finger of Orion, which represents the finger of God that creates everything. Finger of Orion, representing outer space, if you like, the outermost part. Here's the innermost part of the galaxy, and there we go into outer space, opposite it, in terms of reality. That's up in the sky, but the same thing is translated in how it works energetically in landscape patterns as well. And that's how it's been recognised by the Celts, and it's still recognised in our tradition of sovereignty and how kings and queens are crowned and so on like that. Most people don't know these things. They don't know what tradition and what power of the land underlies the very constitution we have by which we're governed by. So it's actually good to get to know these things and to help it, enhance it with love, so wrong energies don't go into it.
Peter, so you were talking about Gemini going to the Taurus, yes, for this new age, for the next grand age. Which way is it with the Scorpio and the Sagittarius? Is it Saggy to Scorpio or Scorpio? Does it matter?
Well, if you see the sunrise on the same day each year,
yeah,
you'd expect it to be in the same position as stars, but it's not. It moves a little bit, and it moves 1 degree every 72 years. So after about almost 26,000 years, it will have moved all the way around the ecliptic on that particular day of observation. So at midsummer now, the sun is there on that cusp of Gemini Taurus, and at midwinter now, if you look at the sun, it'll be on the cusp of Sagittarius and Scorpio. In 72 years' time, it will be 1 degree removed from that. So we're in a key period of time. We're exactly on those key cusps at the moment, key moments in time.
Peter, I'm accepting the wobble of the Earth on its axis and this cycle we have of just under 26,000 years. I'm not quite sure in my mind at the moment why you're taking this particular moment, this particular cusp within the 26,000 year cycle as the beginning of the great new age rather than some other moment within that 25,800 year cycle.
It's because the meridian of the Milky Way galaxy crosses the ecliptic at those 2 points and makes it the 2 fixed points on the ecliptic.
Oh, right, yes.
That's the reason. So the main axis of the zodiac is between those 2 points along there. So that's a fixed axis.
So Peter, is that curving line that goes between those 2 points, is that the Milky Way?
Yeah, this dotted yellow line.
That's the Milky Way.
That's the meridian of the Milky Way. It's called the celestial bow.
Is this the sidereal zodiac?
What is
The ecliptic circles, ecliptic is the sun's path in the circle around there. So over 26,000 years it'll be moving in this direction. Taurus, Aries, so on. But it takes 26,000 years approximately to do that. But every day, actually look at the sky, it circulates, or every year it appears to go in the other direction. But then you're not looking at something on the same day all the time. It's complicated. But
Not wanting to complicate it too much, but just for clarity. Your midsummer point, is that the sidereal zodiac? Because midsummer is normally between Gemini and Cancer.
This has nothing to do with astrology in the sense of so this is the pure geometry of the zodiac, whether it's in the sky or on Earth. This is how it is. The Earth's tilt, so that if you project the celestial North Pole up into the sky, because the Earth tilts and wobbles, it's not pointing direct to the occult pole.
Yeah.
So if you look up at North Pole star, it's not there at the occult pole. But because it's tilted, it's actually now there and marked by a star which we call Polaris. It's actually the star Arcas in the tail of the little bear. But in 2,000 years' time it'll be there, and then 2,000 years after that it'll be there. So this inner circle is the path of the celestial North Pole of the planet. Gives the wobble. And astrologers will take that North Pole star, or wherever it is, on that circle, as the centre of their chart, and then you get the two differences, two different charts set up.
And we're going into sort of generally the age of Aquarius, because that's where the sun is at spring equinox.
Yes,
So
ideally,
you're looking at it.
if our North Pole of the Earth went straight to the occult pole, the equinoctial rising sun would be, where are we? Would be here. But because of the tilt of the Earth and the way things happen, the equinox sun will appear to still be rising in Pisces, hasn't reached that point yet. So that's your double truth, because the tilt of the Earth. You've got the ideal and you've got the unideal, the natural of it. But the artists will learn to work with both, so see both these. And of course Hindu astrology will use the equinox rising sun in the autumn. And so they'll say we're going to the age of Leo. Just confuse things. So I'm preferring to work myself with what the mystery schools work with, and that's the midsummer and midwinter sun, and then you've got a more stable environment to see it. And those midsummer.
But you still haven't quite answered my question, because the midsummer sun we think of as being on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer, 21st of June, not the cusp of Taurus and Gemini.
Well, that's only because you'd be working with 2,000 years out of date setup.
Right. So this is sidereal, not cartographic.
No, this is the real. If you're an astronomer, look at the sky right now. The midsummer sun will be on the cusp of Gemini Taurus. That's where it will be, with the finger of Orion pointing right at it. That's the reality. But Western astrologers still work with a chart that's 2,000 years out of date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Because they based it on Ptolemy, and he was.
Yes, that's
and he
right.
was incorrect.
Yeah,
Yes.
and what they do, they make adjustments for it.
It's 23 degrees out.
Yes, it's,
No, because it.
I think this is a coffee discussion.
the copy.
That's right. It's all time on this one.
I mean, the Hindu
It's very clear.
astrologers will
Very
work with this astronomical reality. It's only Western astrologers that still work with the old 2,000 years out of date thing, but they make adjustments to make it work. So it's okay. You know, the geometry in nature, the geometry in the landscape.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about all this astrological thing. It's just, I would say pure and simple, but it's not simple, but it's just pure. And it's just, you know, this is the geometry, the archetypal geometry. It's the circle with the centre. In the sky, the circle corresponds to the sun's path ecliptic. On Earth, the circle corresponds here, coming through London and so on in the British Zodiac. In Ireland, it goes through the Perk points in Ireland and so on.
Can I ask about this Watling Street line? So if we follow from Snowdon, it goes down actually to Colchester, which was an old capital, wasn't it? So why did it divert? Why does it turn off that axis and go down to London?
I know, I asked myself that question. You know, I thought, and then one day, you know, you have these little revelations afterwards. It sounds banal, but you know, it's a little revelation for me at the time. I was staring at this and I thought, God, it's like a clock face. And then I got the fact that the whole of Britain was actually laid out as a, you know, in a zodiac pattern, like a clock.
No, that's where Winchester fits into that. Where Winchester fits into that, because that was also a seat of Crown.
Yes, Winchester.
Straight down.
Here we are there. In the next picture I'll show it better. But this is to show how the Celts worked with the ideal pattern of the 12 equals divisions, 12 equal signs in this way. And I wanted to emphasise, you know, this main axis with Ireland as being fixed. Even in the next pattern I'm going to show you that's fixed. And also this main axis of the zodiac that comes, you know, 30 degrees from 30 degrees there, isn't it? And then there. So those are two axes the Celts keep fixed, even when we move to the unequal signs of the zodiac.
Can I ask one more question? Where's Hadrian's Wall?
Hadrian's Wall, I'll show you on the next one because it shows up better. Now this is the unequal sign zodiac. As used by the Celts, and with my help of my son Sam, because I really wanted to understand why were some constellations made big and others made small, to give the unequal sign. There must have been a reason for it, it's not haphazard. And I eventually found out that they were trying to marry the 5-fold, the 10-fold geometry with the 12-fold geometry, trying to make a marriage of it. And so this is the map I did before Sam worked on it, and then he's made it a little bit more accurate using Google Earth projections and things like that, which is printed out at the back there, and I'll show you that in a moment. But this is what I've been working with mostly for some time. And it's near enough accurate. So here you've got those two axes I talked about which remain fixed, but some other ones have changed slightly to make the unequal signs, to marry with the size of the constellations. See, Virgo, for instance, is huge, Leo is huge, whereas Cancer and Gemini are tiny in relationship to those two. Done on purpose. You know, human beings did it on purpose. They recognise something which they're trying to do. And so that now I haven't got time to talk about it too deep, you'll get bored, but anyway, this is how it works out, as near as we can find out. And you'll see that the Fosse Way, coming down from High Cross, going to Bath and then on to Exeter, it follows this particular division there. And in the other direction it goes to Lincoln. And that's the division there between Leo and Virgo. And the division between Leo and Virgo is what the Sphinx represents. So I call it the Sphinx line. The Sphinx is traditionally the lion's body and the woman's head, or virgin's head. Virgo and Leo married together, the king and queen, perfect sacred marriage. So this line is very, very important. if you have time later, I'll show you why. It's important. So this route, this Fossway route, is a very sacred route, and it continues on down to Bath, which was very, very sacred to the Celts, and it's the only hot water spa we have in the country, healing properties. And then the other line that was of major importance always to the Celtic traditions and other traditions, because you need it in navigation across the land or the sea, and that's the north-south line. And the north-south line here, for Britain, starts at St Catherine's Point, the furthest southerly point, and goes right through High Cross and up to the coast up there, and the Romans took this up, and that's where they built Hadrian's Wall from where this north-south line reaches the coast, about just above Durham, and that they took as the starting point for laying out Hadrian's Wall. So it's not haphazardly designed, it's done specifically to this sacred geometry. The Romans knew what they were doing. They knew about these things. They took over what ancient cultures had done when they knew it's the right thing, and just enhanced it.
So is Winchester on that north-south? Is Winchester on that north-south?
Yes.
Yes, Winchester's
Perfect, yeah.
on that.
And Oxford.
And Oxford's on it too. Two very powerful places, key places. And if you see Sam's geometry, which I'll try and show in the next picture, you see that they come onto this, the geometry of this whole thing. They're absolutely not haphazardly placed at all. It's quite remarkable, actually. How do they do these things? Modern planners and architects can't do these things. I've got no idea about it. And it's this unequal sign that the Celts and the later cultures of our British people actually worked with more than the fixed sign one. It's this unequal sign one. So the gypsy switches, for instance, which obviously gypsies came to this country quite late, really, but they learnt the tradition, the wisdom from the inhabitants of this land, and they did their rotation each year through the signs in this way. So I've identified where the main places they went to in yellow. They veered off a bit to Dublin to go and buy horses. so it's a bit distorted what the Egyptians did, but they had to head for the major metropolises in order to buy and sell and get work and so on, and Ireland to get their horses. But otherwise they're going to a particular place in each of these signs of the zodiac, and they're the unequal signs that they use.
So are those the little circles with holes in the middle?
These yellow circles is
That's where the gypsy switches.
places. Yeah,
Are there minor gypsy switches as well as major
I
ones?
expect so.
Yeah.
But they didn't record much, and it's thanks to a wonderful woman who
Susie's.
learnt it from the gypsies. I've forgotten whose name it was.
Is it Jill?
Jill.
Anthony Thorpe.
Jill,
yeah.
Yeah. And she managed to record it before the whole knowledge was lost.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So for me, it's another confirmation. So I try and get as many confirmations as I can that this is the pattern that our culture's been working with for 3 millennia. 3 millennia, it's a long time. Fantastic. And so it gives ideas what we can do. We could take the timing of the year to correspond to the zodiac sign. We'd either use the real, or the, if you like, the ideal and the natural. You use, what am I trying to say? I'd use Western astrology timing of the year according to the constellations, or the real, what it really is, timing. You can take your choice and do something in that particular area. Either outermost or innermost part of the matter, just take one of those sectors And like the gypsies, you'll be celebrating in a certain way through the arts or whatever you like doing with other people, and putting consciousness in this as the year goes round.
Peter, when we actually look at the sky, the constellations, you do have some bigger, some smaller, some gaps and some overlap. So working with the zodiac was obviously a slightly touchy-feely and experiential element
absolutely.
about where you draw the boundaries. I mean,
Yes.
do you not feel that a part of the unequal basis was due to that, not just purely some whimsy in terms of old astrologers, but to
Yes,
some
yes,
extent
but not-
reflecting what's actually happening up there in terms of the congregations of the
Yes, no,
stars into what we call
absolutely.
constellations.
I thought exactly like you. Now I've found that the setup to make the unequal signs is actually to match the fivefold or tenfold geometry. So in a sense that becomes ideal in a way, if you see what I mean. But when it comes to nature, nature doesn't pop up the right hill in exactly the right spot all the time. It does an approximation. And so you can take this pattern here, even though it's unequal signs, you can take that as representing the ideal. But what we do and what nature does is the real. It gets as close as it can to that, to express itself. So there's always this double truth. How do we go along? But clearly some things were done deliberately by the ancients to be exactly in the right spot, ideally. And the London one is an example, and this dream sculpture isn't precisely on the exact spot, but it's only about a mile away from where it is. Anyway, let's have a break. I've talked enough.